the strongest and most overpowered Demon King reborn in the year 2099. So I'm Recaps, and let's take a look in this new anime. And at the beginning of everything, a girl narrates a situation that happened not long ago, when two forces fought for the dominion of Immortal 8. One of these forces was the Mortals, who have a very limited lifespan, and the other was the Immortals, who, as the name suggests, were a group formed by people freed from the chains of death. In the end, they had the world's fate tied to a battle between two specific men. One of them was Gran, the hero who received the sacred sword and was chosen by the goddess Meldia. The other was the Demon Lord, who ruled over winters and mortals, also known as Velfti and Velswalt. But on the 10th day of the second month of the dragon, this war finally came to an end. In the blink of an eye, the hero emerged victorious from the battle. At this, the Demon Lord congratulated his opponent for defeating him, and, above all, praised Gran's courage. Gran, in turn, returned the compliments, saying that his opponent was also very strong. Then, the Demon Lord questioned why he had ended up losing that fight. After all, he was much stronger than Gran in every way, as well as being immortal. Hearing this, the hero replied that this was precisely the answer. Unlike the Demon Lord, Gran was a mortal being, which made him value his life more. Consequently, he strove harder and did everything within his reach to keep living. Gran claimed that their supposed weakness was what made them always strive to become stronger. However, even after this whole explanation, the Demon Lord dismissed it all, saying that something so superficial could never cause his defeat. Yet Gran reminded him that, regardless, he had been defeated. Therefore, Gran believed this victory stemmed from the light mortals possess, something the immortals cannot comprehend. The Demon Lord then advised Gran to be careful. After all, where there is light, there is also darkness. Amid this brief dialogue, the Demon Lord finally bid farewell, acknowledging Gran as his greatest enemy. Watching him vanish before his eyes, the hero also recognized him as his most hated foe. And with that, Gran turned his back to return home. Meanwhile, the girl resumed narrating the story of that world and discovered that the hero had remained alive after that fierce battle. At the same time, the Demon Lord Velton awoke to the voice of Messina calling his name. She introduced herself as a member of the Six Dark Pairs Pillars, also known as the Duchess of the Blazing Flame. She revealed that she had been waiting for that moment for 500 years. Given the seriousness of the occasion, she apologized for receiving him in inappropriate attire. He, however, dismissed it, as Messina had already satisfied him by overseeing his reincarnation rite. Afterward, he asked where they were. Messina informed him that they were in the underground cathedral of Endor's dungeon, beneath the ancient Shinjo station. Upon hearing this, Velton asked her to join him once again, so they could proceed with the plan to dominate Innate. However, Messina said she had something to report in this regard. The world they were supposed to rule had disappeared more than 80 years ago. Both Innate and Earth had been swept into a devastating catastrophe in an event later known as Phantos, which was responsible for causing a seismic shift. And with that, 90% of the population ended up being exterminated within the first 3 years after this event. Because of this, national governments ceased to function, and each city assumed the role of independent states and governments. In this context, two major wars broke out between these so-called city-states. However, Makina makes it clear that the wounds caused by these conflicts have finally begun to heal. Having said all this, she informs that this is the current state of the era in which they are living, where local civilization has magical technology. Currently, Makina reports that they are in the year 2099 of the fused era. Seeing the new world he is now living in, Velton is astonished, as he never imagined mortal civilization could have advanced so much. On the way, a random man bumps into Velton, apologizing and saying he was distracted by his thoughts. Immediately after, he tries to use one of his spells to scare the locals. But upon realizing it was merely a weather manipulation trick, everyone simply ignores him and calls him a fool. Makina then explains to him that he cannot use magic within the city. She grabs him by the arm and drags him away from the situation he created. She informs him that after Velton's death, a ceasefire was established with the mortals. For 80 years, the disturbance of Phantos caused immortal citizens from the immortal realm to migrate to major cities. Shortly after this, a certain movement was led by some of the major industries. This movement, known as the Immortal Hunts, treated immortals as dangerous creatures rather than people, turning them into targets for elimination. With the advancement of mag engineering, anti-immortal weaponry was mass-produced, facilitating the extermination of immortals. At this, Velton asks what happened to the 6 dark pairs. Makina explains that the whereabouts of Mai Shields and Heen remain unknown. As for Zeno, he acted as Iska and attacked the enemy to allow Makina to escape the battle alive. Therefore, she needed to stay alive to fulfill this task. Hearing this, Velton acknowledges that Zeno was indeed a man of deep loyalty. But then, he focuses on the main topic of the conversation and asks about the fate of the marks of the bloody arts. Upon hearing this question, Makina tries to change the subject, suggesting he step outside for some water. Makina quickly leaves him behind, promising to return with his water soon. Meanwhile, a random girl hacks into the city's public announcements, replacing the commercials with a fun movie. Witnessing this, Velton calls her out, surprising her as he discovered she was behind the hack. Velton admits that even though he noticed her actions, he doesn't understand the technique behind it. Therefore, he states that the girl is an expert in this field. Hearing this apparent compliment, the girl feels flustered, claiming she didn't do anything impressive. She then starts explaining a bit more about the hacking technique she used earlier, revealing a fatal vulnerability in the logical barrier and the program forming the city's displays. Taking this into account, she was able to hack these announcements more easily and replace them with whatever content she wanted. She decided to spread adult-rated content as a way of rebelling against the system. While she passionately speaks about her punk ideology, Velton abruptly interrupts, asking about the whereabouts of a man named Marcos. Hearing this name, she points to a company and says its CEO is named Marcos. Without hesitation, Velton heads there immediately. Upon arrival, the receptionist greets him warmly, welcoming him to the IHMI company. He goes straight to the point, asking her to inform Marcos of his presence. Shortly after, Marcos's personal secretary Kinorara arrives and escorts Velton to him. Velton wastes no time, directly stating his wish. He asks Marcos to help him rebuild the mortal kingdom and dominate the world once again. Upon hearing this, Marcos bursts into laughter, outright refusing to help with anything. Feeling belittled, Velton attempts to attack him, but Kino reacts faster, striking first. Marcos then tells her it's fine and asks her to step aside. He proceeds to mock Velton further, explaining that the same wounds Velton suffered in the past would have healed instantly. Thus, Marcos declares that Velton can never conquer the world in such a weakened state. Moreover, Marcos makes it clear that he will never bow to someone so incapable. Velton insists and tries to attack him again, confident he can win this time. However, Marcos easily breaks his spell and explains that his power comes from the fruit of humanity's wisdom, specifically the latest innovation in mag engineering. He elaborates that activating magic requires a 5-step initialization process. However, with the device known as Familia, they can skip 3 of these steps, greatly simplifying the use of magic. Additionally, Marcos states that this device is specifically designed to be unusable by incorporeal beings like Velton. Finding himself in such a dire situation, Velton asks why Marcos is doing all of this. Marcos reveals he never tolerated Velton from the beginning, always viewing him as a tyrant. Saying this, Marcos uses his magic to throw Velton out of the company, declaring to his assistant that he will take the position of the new Demon King. Velton is later found by Makina, lying on the ground after being beaten even by ordinary citizens in the city. She apologizes for not warning him about Marcos's betrayal earlier. However, Velton makes it clear that if she had told him, it would have only made him more eager to confront the traitor and resolve things. Makina takes him to her home, and Velton finds it strange that she lives in such a small place. She explains that her salary is very low, and this was the best place she could afford in the city. Feeling sympathetic, Velton sees the girl living in such a humble place, gently rests her head on his chest, and embraces her, saying she has been his best and most loyal servant all this time. Hearing these words after so much hardship, the girl begins to cry. After all this suffering, I can't help but wonder how this guy will manage to recover anything, given how ridiculously weak he is and how everyone in that city has taken over. So leave a like, subscribe, and I'll definitely be back with part 2 for you all. Bye!